Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Crane & Company. I'm David Cohn. There's Blaine Crane right there. Our fearless leader, Jake Crane, is dealing with a family situation, but he's built different, so I believe he's joining us via audio.
Yes.
Jake, can you hear us?
Yes, gentlemen. Sorry,
me.
Yes, this is Clem H. Fandango. Dealing with an emergency, but you guys know I'll never miss. But to be honest with you, the picture that you're seeing right now of me kind of really symbolizes how I feel after yesterday. And people always ask, Jake, what do you mean being an Auburn fan has made you dead inside? Well, guess what? Yesterday's the greatest example of all time. But Coney, happy for your boys. Big dub by Michigan, man. When are y'all going to play somebody?
Yeah, big dub. When will Michigan just play someone already? I'm really getting sick and tired of it. But so it's a true road game for all of us now. I mean, It's always a road game for me on Thanksgiving. And Blaine, I think, are you in Tupelo or are you?
I am in Auburn, Alabama, the scene of the crime.
And then, as if that weren't enough, Jake is in a vehicle driving in the elements.
Obviously,
so true road game for everyone. Did y'all have a good Thanksgiving?
Man, had a fantastic Thanksgiving. Really had two of them. Ate at our house, and then obviously came up and saw our family here in Mississippi, and then ate. So I'm gonna have to fast for about 7 days to try and balance everything out. But no, it was a great time.
That's exactly what I was just talking about too. I'm going to have to do that. But either way, all right. So we'll just make sure that you're still connected with audio. You were talking about the Michigan game. Yes. Yeah, of course, man. There was a lot of emotions over here in the household, as there is every rivalry week, just because the games are nonstop and there's so many implications for the postseason. Yeah. And, I think that it was the most important win in the history of Michigan football, at least for the 17 years that I've been affiliated with the program. You'll have to ask someone who's a true historian of the program to go back further than that, but especially the biggest win for Michigan in the history of this rivalry, just because, as if this rivalry isn't big enough, Michigan and Ohio meet 3 straight years ranked in the top 5, which brings it back to a national conversation. And as if that's not enough, they meet back-to-back seasons both undefeated. And as if that's not enough, you have all this controversy and one side calling the other cheaters and all this signal stealing and advanced scouting controversy. So the stakes literally could not have been higher. I mean, Ryan Day losing 3 straight of these and to an interim coach it's a tough look, I think, for Buckeye fans, but he still has the highest winning percentage of any Power 5 coach in the country. So it's sort of like, this back and forth, I think, with Ryan Day every time that he loses one of these games. But really, from my perspective, it's all about Sharon Moore. I mean, what a job he did to fill in as the interim coach and to be able to really – when I was watching the game, Jake and Blaine, to me, it looked like a pitcher who was coming down the stretch and had a no-hitter into the 7th, had a no-hitter into the 8th, into the 9th. Not quite a perfect game. Yeah. There were some mistakes down the stretch, but trying to keep that no-hitter intact. He was pitching backwards. He called just enough, wrinkle plays, bringing in Orgy in the second half to run some Q power, throwing the double pass with Donovan Edwards, things like that, but also getting the run game going. It was a significant win. And look, hats off to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes program as well, because they came and they played really good football, and it was a joyful 3 hours for sure.
Yeah, well, look, I think at this point, 3 in a row, the winning is in Michigan's DNA now against Ohio State. This is who they are. They're the big dog now, right? We saw the way the game went. I want to give a shout out to Coach Moore. And look, Coach Day, too, I thought Ohio State, especially Kyle McCord coming back from some early mistakes to make some big throws, I think it shows you kind of the intestinal fortitude of that guy. But I want to give Coach Moore credit. There was one team that got the ball on a 4th and 1 early and decided to punt it. The other one had a 4th and 2 early and decided to go for it. I thought that set the tone for the whole game.
You would have never seen Urban Meyer do that. Really, Urban Meyer would have gotten that. Urban Meyer would have gone for it and gotten it.
Without a doubt. But I tell you what, if you go back and watch our preview and prediction, this game went about exactly how we thought it was going to go. You cannot make mistakes in a game that is decided by 3 to 5 plays like this. Kyle McCord had the early turnover when everybody was feeling each other out. It was a very conservative beginning to that game, and he did bounce back. But at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. I thought Michigan overall, and before I even get into this, the front sevens on both of these defenses I know there was points scored, but I thought it was an incredible performance by both front sevens. But I tell you what makes a rivalry in a game great like this is when teams answer each other. When Michigan scored, Ohio State would answer. When Ohio State scored, Michigan would answer. And just as a lover of college football, as a lover of college football rivalries, that's what it's about. It wasn't decided until the end. And at the end of the day, Kyle McCord made a few more mistakes than J.J. McCarthy did. And everybody that's saying that throw to J.J. McCarthy was a lucky throw that it wasn't intercepted. Both guys' backs were turned. That's the best throw I've ever seen J.J. McCarthy make, and he made it in a huge moment. I will say this, though, and I know Georgia was close to Georgia Tech, and we're going to get into that this week. But at the end of the day, I'm a little bit worried about Michigan's pass protection, especially now that Zinner's out, going up against Georgia or some of these front sevens they're going to play down the road. But again, to show you the type of person that plays at Michigan, one of your best offensive linemen goes out, gets carted off the field, you put the backup in, and the next play you run power right down their throat for a 30-yard touchdown. I think that shows you who Michigan is and why they do have a chance to win the whole thing this year.
No doubt. And Blake Corum putting up the 6-5 for Zinter after he scored. Blaine, what was your take on the whole game?
That's exactly how I thought it would go, to be honest. Go back. The team that controlled the line of scrimmage, which Michigan did, had the most rushing yards in the game, and the team that made the least mistakes, right, was going to win this game. And that's what Michigan did. I mean, you see, first of all, I'll give kudos to Ohio State. Nobody was afraid in this football game. Nobody was afraid of the moment in this game. Marvin Harrison Jr. showed up. He looked great. The JJ played good enough. I thought he made a couple of good throws, but didn't make the mistakes that we're seeing him make the last couple of weeks that you can't make in this game. Controlled the line of scrimmage. I thought both teams played great. There's not really a loser in this game. But if you look at Ryan Day and Ohio State, it's amazing to me, okay, the problems that you have. You just lose to Michigan, all right, for a couple of years in a row. You're a field goal away last year to go into the national championship. A field goal away against one of the best Georgia teams I've seen. And now people are calling for this man's head. I'm telling you, Ohio State fans, right now, the grass is not always greener on the other side, buddy. It's not. I think Ryan Day's a hell of a coach. I thought Kyle McCord played well. I thought he played better than I thought he would. And that's a kudos to Kyle. But huge. I mean, you lost to a Michigan team with one hand tied behind their back, the way they look without Coach Harbaugh. But, man, Michigan right now, and if you're Michigan, one thing that does excite you is you go watch that Georgia Tech game. All right, you go watch Georgia Tech get 200-plus yards on the ground against that Georgia football team. Between the tackles, outside the tackles, a little bit different of an offense. But if you're Michigan, it's a lot to be excited about. You really needed this one, man, because you're not worried about Iowa at all.
Yeah, the next 7 days of college football. Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Well, David, I was going to say this. Like, yes, the pressure that Ryan Day's under with his winning percentage is kind of ridiculous. But, guys, at the end of the day, isn't that what you sign up for when you go coach at a place like Ohio State or Michigan? Gus Malzahn got fired because he couldn't beat Georgia. He beat Alabama a decent amount of times. Auburn had a more success under him than just about anybody else from a head coaching standpoint if you go through it historically. But it's just like we have the saying, oh, well, you can go 0-11, but if you win this game, it's a successful season. Well, that can be flipped on its head, too. You can keep going 11-1 and 11-1, but if you keep losing the biggest game to your rival, there is going to be some heat. Not that he should be fired. I think that would be absolutely asinine and crazy, but I do think it is right that he's feeling a little bit of heat. But one of the good news is for them, there's no more divisions next year in the Big Ten if Ryan Day is still there, which I think he will be. And you may end up having a situation where Ohio State and Michigan could play twice, and you may get 2 licks at them. So, again, I understand from the Ryan Day perspective yesterday, but you've now lost 3 in a row to your biggest rival, and pretty much every one of those games had national title implications. So I can understand both sides of it. But again, if we're getting pissed about going 11-1, those are some high-class problems.
Well, here's the thing, and Steve Day said it best. The Buckeyes have built their program and their teams to win national championships. Michigan has now built their team to beat Ohio. And why is that? Because we're coming off of an era here where Urban Meyer went 7-0. right? And Michigan couldn't get to any of those other things. What good is it to build your program to win conference championships and national championships if you can't even beat the Buckeyes to win the division? That's what they were just locked right there. It doesn't matter if you go 11-1, you can't even play in the conference championship. And so they've really, you saw that playing out in the first couple of quarters yesterday, just old school Big Ten football where both teams said, okay, we know what type of game this is. We're in the elements here. It's freezing. Let's make it this type of game. But last year, the Buckeyes were able to backdoor their way into the college football playoff, and we almost had a second. I mean, we could have theoretically had a second meeting even last year. That ended up not being the case. But the way that the landscape is looking right now, I just don't see them being able to slide into the college football playoff.
No, not with what happened yesterday. Not with Florida State winning. We'll see with Louisville. I tell you what, though,
Texas big win, yeah. Washington wins. Yeah.
How big was that missed field goal right before half, too? Talk about icing the kicker. Huge. I mean, Ohio State could have kicked a field goal to send it into overtime instead of having to try and score a touchdown and end up throwing that interception.
Remember, I told you guys the last 2 years it's been a 2 to 3 point game at halftime, and then both teams make their adjustments. He misses that field goal. Michigan stays up 14-10. Michigan comes out, kicks a field goal in the second half to go up 7. And then the most important drive I thought was that next one by the Buckeyes when they went and not just scored, but when they ran it down Michigan's throat and tied it up at 17. I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to now try and do what Michigan did to them the last 2 years and run it down their throat. If Michigan doesn't answer now, they're going to be in big trouble. And like Jake said, they did answer.
Well, people need to realize when you get in games like this, when the talent's almost even, a lot of times it comes down to special teams. All right. It comes down to who can make kicks and who can win field position. You see that in a lot of games when you have NFL talent running around like this. And Michigan won that. They won the rushing yards and they won the turnover battle. Those three things are a recipe for winning against really good teams, and Michigan does that extremely well.
Mm-hmm. Well, talking about the special teams, big special teams play in the Iron Bowl yesterday. Obviously, I was sitting here watching it with a household of Alabama fans and alumni, and I was thinking about you guys because it's just Auburn finds a way to play Alabama close every single time the game is in Jordan-Hare, and I wanted to see what you guys thought about the game.
Well, look, I've had a night to sleep on it. And listen, we're all fans of somebody. I mean, we've all been in it. We know how the sausage is made. Nobody was crying in their hands yesterday. But here's what I want to say. It's one thing. Obviously, Alabama's better than Auburn. They have better players. But Auburn caught every break possible to win that game yesterday, and you blew it. You blew it, and you blew it for a couple reasons. And again, the players played unbelievably hard, and they showed up. The atmosphere was incredible. They're going to get a lot of really good recruits out of this. But you blew an opportunity, just similar to the way you did against Georgia. It was obviously more in your hands this game, but to have a program-altering win early to send a message to the college football world. And I'm going to tell you this. Coy Moore, for all the talking that dude did in the offseason, you've done nothing all year. All you did was really cost Auburn the Iron Bowl, if we're going to be honest. But it's not just on him. Hugh Freeze said in the press conference after the game, he didn't realize that was Coy Moore. Number one, I don't know how in God's name, in that moment, you don't know exactly who is on the field, especially at punt returner. Now, he had the same number, 0, as Keontae Scott. So two things could have happened. One, nobody communicated that they were sending Coy Moore instead of the primary punt returner out there. And if that's the case, Tanner Burns' ass should be fired into the sun, fired immediately. He already showed you didn't know how to go safe against New Mexico State, gave them an extra possession. I won't even go through the other mistakes. The second one is, if Keontae Scott is hurt and cannot go back in, and you have to send somebody out, the head coach would know that. That would get communicated to him that Coy Moore was going out there. And you know what he probably would have said? Listen, get away from it. Just get away from it and let it hit. But you let Bama back in the game up 4 with 4 minutes to go because you can't field a punt. And then you've got Bama gifts you a 3rd and goal bad snap when he's not looking. Gifts it to you. Mm-hmm. It's 4th and 34. 4th and goal. You got to score. It's the last play of the game. How in God's name, if you're going to rush 2 people, is there solo coverage on the outside? I thought Ron Roberts actually called a fantastic game for most of the game. Alabama was so much better, had so much better players on their offense going against Auburn's defense than vice versa, that even stopping them somewhat was unbelievably impressive. He would rush 3, he'd rush 4, he'd show pressure, he wouldn't bring pressure because Auburn couldn't get there unless they brought pressure. But if you're going to rush 2, how does somebody end up soloed on the outside, and how does that guy make the play? But here's the difference, David. This Auburn is Hugh Freeze's biggest building archetype that he has to find is how to win. Those Alabama players know how to win. This group of Auburn personnel, they don't know how to do it. You've got to go get guys that know how to win. Not just thinking they're going to win, but when they go out in the field, they're able to execute it in the big moments. Auburn handed that game to Alabama. I know everybody's sick, but at the end of the day, you're going to give kudos to Alabama for making the plays, for entering and driving down the field. That's what champions do. They don't make excuses. They go win the game, even when it's looking bleak. It was absolutely disgusting from Auburn, in my opinion, and there's a lot of blame to go around. It's not just one person, but there's a couple people that would be hitting the transfer portal and one coordinator that would have been gone after last night, in my opinion.
Well, Blaine, what do you think? I mean, Auburn 244 yards of rushing, and really that doesn't even tell the tale of the defense, which I thought, for the most part, until a 4th and 31 touchdown, played a great game.
Yeah, I'm going to try to come at this trying to take my Auburn goggles off and look at this from an outside perspective. If I'm just a fan, I'm a football guy watching a team. All right, Auburn, first of all, you played your best game, hands down. I thought Peyton Thorne, even with the 50 yards passing he had, played okay, did some good things in the pocket. You ran the ball extremely well in this football game. And you're going against a lot better than Alabama team and personnel-wise. That's why Alabama was a 14.5-point favorite in this game. The last 8 minutes of this game, I've never seen, a defensive staff and a special team staff fall apart so quickly. You look at Auburn right now. If I'm watching this game, Moore for Auburn, I think his name's Corey Moore, has caught 3 punts this year. He's caught 3 punts. Auburn's punted it 64 times this year. Corey Moore, right now, if you're Hugh Freeze, that's the biggest punt, catch, or return of your coaching career. Of your career, all right? So he goes out there, doesn't tell the head coach, and then Hugh goes in a press conference and says he doesn't know the guy that's out there. That's damning enough, and that's worrisome enough, in my opinion. 2, it's third and 20, okay? It's 3rd and 20. You know what Jalen Milroe wants to do in this situation, right? He wants to run it. That's what he wants to do. If you're a spy, and this isn't really on Rod Roberts' play, in my opinion, he put a spy in the middle of the field, all right? If you are a spy playing defense, all right, your job is not to commit, okay? You commit when the quarterback goes. That's when you commit. You can't get caught in the trash in the middle, and that's what that kid did. You gave up 19 yards on 3rd and 20. And then 4th and 32. This is what blows my mind, okay? This is what blows my mind. You brought 2, you set a spy in the middle, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. You should never, ever do that. Kids don't do this in high school. So you're going to drop 8, all right? There should never be, ever be solo coverage anywhere on the field. Never. Not even that. If you go back and look at that play, all right, you got to remember, it's a 4 or 5 second pass for this football to get to the end zone. All right? It takes that long. All right? So your guys should have their heels on the goal line. This is high school stuff. Heels on the goal line, and their back should never be turned. You go watch that play. Auburn has 3 guys. 3 guys in the end zone with their back turned. That's coaching. That's what that is. Never in my life have I seen a team melt down like that in big moments. And the most worrisome thing about it, if you're Auburn, when the moment was the biggest, when the pressure was the highest, when you needed it the most, your coaching staff and your players blew it. Blew it.
Jake,
and that's what hurts you and worries you in the long run. When this moment comes up again, and you need a guy, and you need a play, and you need to trust your coach, can you do it? At this point, Hugh Freeze is going to get Auburn fans to have to earn it. You have to earn Auburn's respect again for them to come watch after that. Auburn had a 99.9% chance to win that game.
Yeah.
That's
Jake, you and I.
Well, I mean,
You and I talk a lot about a couple of our pet peeves with football. One, lining up in the shotgun on 4th and inches, which seems to happen more and more, and then rushing 3 or even rushing 2 in Hail Mary situations. So I wanted to ask you this specifically. Yesterday, it felt a little different, though, because it's not a true Hail Mary where the quarterback needs to throw it as far as he can. It's still 30 yards. And with Jalen Milroe's scramble ability, I didn't mind the rush 2 approach to it as long as you do what Blaine is saying and don't turn your back to the quarterback. Do you wish they rushed 4 in that scenario?
Here's what I would have done. If it's me, and listen, hindsight's always 20/20. And I do want to say again, I thought Ron Roberts' plan was fantastic in this game, but
it really was.
But going to Blake,
We can't hear you, Jake.
You go
Jake,
up 14-10. You go up and you bust coverage. Alabama's team board doesn't cover the guy. You're in Georgia in the year. You're in the fight. You're winning the game.
Hey, Jake, we can't hear you, man. Jake, we can't hear you.
At what point the coach players, yeah, you went destroyed an all Arkansas team. You never really faced any adversity in that game. And I think what.
All right, we'll bring Jake back in
a tough patch. Just rein it back.
Yeah. We'll get him back in here. But Blaine, go ahead.
Like if you're watching that game, you're a quarterback, man. And think about it, it's like it's basically prevent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. I mean, it's 4th and 34. I mean, you're basically in a prevent defense. You practice this almost every day. You at least practice it 2 times a week for sure. What would you have done if you're calling that defense? Do you bring 4? I mean, you brought 2. You didn't even bring 3, right? You brought 2.
Mm-hmm.
You try to contain the edges, but all that does is just a step up and get out for Jalen Milroe. So I just don't understand. Like, give me your take on this.
I honestly, when I saw it live, I didn't mind the rushing 2. Now put him at the 50-yard line, and I'd rush 4 for sure, because that way a quarterback is having to wind up and throw the ball further into the end zone, right? You don't want to give him time to be able to wind up, and you don't want to give the receivers time to get down the field. Rush 4, try and get to him, make him throw it a little earlier. Don't let him scramble and do the Doug Flutie thing. Your brother and I and you, we've all talked about this ad nauseum, right? The approach you should have to a Hail Mary situation. This wasn't that. This, to me, is you're dealing with a mobile quarterback who's on the 30-yard line, right? So he's not having to wind up and throw the ball as far as he can. I don't mind the rush to try and get as many people in the end zone as possible, because he's going to have to throw a ball on a route more than just a traditional like Hail Mary where your defenders have enough time to get from one side of the field all the way to the other, really. It was a perfect throw. I mean, it was the perfect throw that really it shouldn't have been complete if a true prevent defense is being run with your feet on the goal line, like what you're talking about. But, I almost couldn't believe what I was watching, just because the entire day of football had kind of gone like that, and I don't know, man, I hate it for Auburn fans who really sort of, after the New Mexico State loss, you sort of need that win. Like we were talking all off season. Well, Auburn is kind of smelling like 7-5, but is it the right 7-5? Is it a win over Alabama or Georgia 7-5, or maybe an 8-4 something situation like that? And now, Blaine, you played Georgia to within a touchdown, right? I mean, had them on the ropes a little bit. You had Alabama beat. Is there any part of you that feels moving forward that that's still a good sign, especially when Hugh Freeze is able to stack a couple recruiting classes?
You can take a lot of positives from this game, and you can take a lot of positives from this season, especially the way you played against Georgia and you played against Bama. But I've said this, you don't have the players right now. You see inconsistent play. That's just because you don't have the best players who can know how to show up week in and week out and develop a winning culture. All right. And Hugh's going to get Auburn where it needs to go. You look at the recruits right now, and a lot of recruits are sitting in that stadium knowing that, hey, you could be the difference in this game. And Auburn had this game won. But what worries me, all right, and this has kind of been Auburn's DNA in the last couple of years, if there's a way to screw it up, Auburn will find a way to screw it up. And you saw that in the Alabama game. And I thought it would be different with Hugh and different with the guys he brought in. But to be honest with you, I don't know. I haven't seen a worse meltdown in a long time in all around sports. I mean, hell, it kind of reminded me, to be honest, of the Falcons and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. It was a little bit of that vibe. So now that worries me in clutch big moments, right, which he's going to have all through his career, that Auburn's not going to be able to get the job done. We're going to find a way to mess it up. And that's been Auburn's MO lately.
Yeah. I mean, if you just go in there and you get blown out by 24 to an Alabama team who's really rolling and who's already got a date with Georgia in the SEC championship game, and they're trying to make the college football playoff, and they have better personnel, and it's Hugh Freeze's first year, that's one thing. But when you have them beat, not just you're winning the football game, at least with Georgia, it's like, hey, you're winning, but they're still really good, and there's a lot of time left. I mean, in this game, you had them beat. You have to make 100%. The most egregious mistakes, plural, for Alabama to win that football game. I feel like, again, I think Hugh Freeze is going to do good things there.
I do too.
I really do.
That one hurt, Dave.
I know, but you know what?
A lot of games hurt me.
As I was sitting here with a room full, a household full of Alabama fans, and they're showing the kick six from every single angle before the game, and everyone here is moaning and groaning and saying they show this every year. Yeah. When the game ended like that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is Alabama's kick six now.
The prayer and Jordan Hare, that's what they're calling it for Ben.
Oh, I thought they were calling it the grave digger.
The grave digger. I'm sure they have plenty of names.
Dave Matthews is singing somewhere. Is there? Do you have the chat pulled up at all?
Yeah, I got some. We'll get some donations rolling in here. I saw some earlier. Let's start with Brad David, the $5 donation. The man with two first names. Louisville losing was a disappointment. Was disappointing to the end of a great season. They still have Florida State in the championship. Dave, give me your thoughts on the Louisville-Kentucky game.
We talked about this one, right? I still took Louisville at the end of the day for one reason and one reason only, and that's because it was at home, but it always smelled funny. I mean, it smelled funny because, one, this is an in-state rivalry. I mean, this is rivalry week, right? But also Kentucky is a good football team, and I thought that they had underperformed for most of the season what they were capable of. It just smelled like one of those games that was going to be tight. I think the spread was a full touchdown, wasn't it, before the game? I never liked the full touchdown. I did like the under. That's what I took because I thought it would be scrappy and back and forth. I think the over ended up hitting even before the fourth quarter started, so I was wrong from that aspect. But Devin Leary, he threw a couple of balls that I pointed. I said, that's the Devin Leary that we all thought we were going to get when he transferred over from NC State. What did you think?
Man, this was actually a really phenomenal game to watch if you got to watch it. I thought Devin played good. Even with Ray Davis only with 76 rushing yards. Like, the thing with Ray Davis, he's an NFL back. He's a 3-down back. He has 2 receiving touchdowns in this game. But, we talked about this Louisville team being different in a way that Louisville is usually good in the past years. Louisville's usually a finesse team. They're going to want to shoot out. They're going to outscore you with athletes on the outside and athletes in the backfield. But this year, right, they're built a little bit different in that front seven. They like that physicality. They like to get in the trenches and get it out a little bit. When the thing about it is styles make fights. That's what Kentucky does, all right? That's what Stoops does. That's what he wants, right? Their whole offense is run to set up play action. I thought Devin Leary looked cool, calm, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. I don't think Plummer played bad. For Louisville. Look, you can't give up 38 points to a Kentucky team if you're Louisville, but you got to get past it. You have a big one coming up against Florida State. Why
don't we go ahead and talk about that one then? Because Louisville already is slated to play Florida State in the ACC championship game. Florida gave them all they could handle yesterday, man. Again, another SEC, ACC in-state rivalry game that you and I said, look, the battle of the backup quarterbacks, which one's going to play better? Like, Florida needs this win. They're trying to get bowl eligible. Like, they've overperformed in some games throughout the season, really had a nice win in the Swamp against Tennessee. Like, things are different in the Swamp the way they're different in Georgia here. Like, some of these stadiums just hit different when you give them home field advantage. Florida gave Florida State all they could handle, but Rodemaker made enough plays down the stretch. Florida State's now 12-0, man. I mean, this job that Mike Norvell has done has been incredible. What do you think of that game, and what do you think about them going now to play a Louisville team who's going to be coming off a loss in the ACC championship game?
Well, it sucks for me, David. My dogs on locks, leans, and dogs were Auburn and Florida. Still feel good about both those bets. We talked about this earlier when it comes to rivalry games, and every little thing matters. I think you look at Florida's special teams, you missed 2 field goals. could have been the difference in this game. Florida, what worries me about Florida is just the mistakes they make when they make them. You kind of go to that last drive. I believe it was 3rd and 14. You get the ball back to maybe have a chance to come back and score and go up in this game. Quarterback rolls out for 8 yards. He's 4 yards short, and 2 guys target him, and it's blatant. That's what I worry about this Billy Napier team. But when it comes to Florida State, okay, they're not a playoff team. They're not. Should they get in because they're undefeated? Sure, that's fine. Is it the 4 best teams or is it the 4 most deserving teams? I mean, that's an argument for another day, I think. But without their starting quarterback, I mean, Rodemaker, he's a good player, but he's not good enough to compete with the top 5 or what they'll be able to see put in.
So it's just a quarterback thing with you, though. I mean, Jordan Travis is still healthy. You don't make that same statement about them.
No,
okay.
Jordan Travis is a Heisman candidate.
Yeah.
Like he was that good. And look, Keon Coleman, Benson, Johnny Wilson, Bell, they got good pieces. I'm not denying that, but this is not a good Florida team, right? They're an okay Florida team, especially with a backup quarterback, a guy who can't even throw it. I just don't think this kid's good enough. And hell, if he goes and beats Louisville, I mean, there's no way you can't put him in. I don't think that's going to happen, to be honest. Good for Florida State. I'm a big Mike Norvell guy. Glad they won it, but I just don't see them beating Louisville. I think the worst thing that could happen to Florida State was Louisville losing against Kentucky.
Be tough for me to fully invest this much time and support a sport that would keep an undefeated Florida State team out of a 4-team playoff, and unless short of a situation where you had an undefeated team in every single Power 5 conference and one has to get left out. Okay, I mean, there's some tough decisions, but that's already not going to happen because there's no undefeated team left in the Big 12. But we'll find out about Florida State and Louisville soon enough. Again, I still think there's going to be a lot of movement. I guess that does take us to the Big 12 because Texas, put on a dominant showing in Austin against Texas Tech, rushed for over 300 yards. Like, again, we keep saying, when is Texas going to fall? Well, they didn't when Quinn Ewers went out. Quinn Ewers has come back in. They keep rolling. A dominant win to end the season here. They've only lost 1 game this season. That was on the last play of the game against Oklahoma, your rival in the Red River Shootout. Now they're going to go on and play an Oklahoma State team who had to go, how many overtimes was it yesterday?
It was back-to-back weeks. I think it was 4 overtimes.
To make the conference championship. So, is this the week? I mean, can Oklahoma State beat Texas in the Big 12 championship game?
I just don't like styles make fights. And I always say that it's just so much, but Oklahoma State wants to run the ball. They have one of the best running backs in the country, right? But Texas's front 7 is damn good. Right? They're damn good. They're not a lot of teams can go have success running the ball against Texas, but their weakness is their secondary. Look, this is the Texas team I've been waiting to see. Right, this is a playoff Texas team that I saw yesterday. Right, when it all comes together, Texas is a damn good football team. This is a team you saw go beat Bama on the road. This is what you saw. Hey, and I don't know if you watched the game, but Arch got in there a couple drives, looked okay, which is solid if you're a Texas fan. With that coming up, but if Texas wins out, and I was listening to Paul Feinbaum the other day, he just popped up on my TV scene. He says if Alabama beats Georgia, there's no way you can keep Alabama out. And I just think that's the biggest load of crap I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, I heard that statement. I heard that statement 100 times this weekend over Thanksgiving. And
if Texas wins out, like that's just SEC bias. That's what that is. 100%.
Yeah, but to me, it's yes, but it's justified. When you've won this many championships, like to me, the SEC has said, hey, we're the one who's winning all the national championships. Like, yeah, you're really going to keep the SEC champ out. I understand it. I understand it. Now, for that to happen, which I guess, let's go ahead and talk about the Pac-12 just really quickly, because I do want to hit on this scenario, because there's a couple out there that are a lot of fun to think about, and there's a couple that have been giving me migraines. But Oregon, 31-7 over Oregon State. I mean, Oregon State's a really good football team. They finished up the year 8-4. Oregon just really thrashed them. And then we talked about Washington yesterday in their in-state rivalry game against Washington State, who the last couple of weeks has been coming back on after that 6-game skid. Washington needs a game-winning field goal. They go for it on 4th and 1 in their own territory to be able to convert at the end of the game. Like, Washington now has an undefeated regular season. That's huge for that program out there. My buddy Nick Sheridan, the tight ends coach, congratulations to all them. But now we're gonna get a Washington-Oregon rematch, and everyone's been saying, man, Oregon would win a rematch hands down. Like, it wouldn't even be close. They shouldn't have lost to Washington the first time on that field goal at the end of the game. Well, guess what? We get to find out. So if Washington goes unbeaten, it's a similar situation. Like, it's an undefeated Power 5 team who will be the conference champion. Like, they're going to make the playoff. Now, let's just say Oregon does avenge that loss and beats Washington on a neutral site. I don't care if it's by 1 point on the last play, whatever. Now, all of a sudden, you're going to have a Pac-12 without an undefeated team and a Big 12 without an undefeated team. Let's just go ahead and say that's Texas, right, who has that head-to-head win over Alabama. Then you can start having a conversation, I think, about does an Alabama team like make it in over Oregon? Because they, like you said, you can't jump Texas to me with the head-to-head.
Well, who has a better loss?
The better loss is Oregon for sure. But I just don't know, right? Is it going to go down that far? I mean, is it going to get past strength of schedule? Is it going to get past, like, if Alabama beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, which we'll get to them in a minute, and I do want to talk about the job Georgia Tech did. But that to me is where the conversation would sort of open up. And I guess to have that, you would need Michigan to hold serve against Iowa and be an undefeated champion. You'd have to have Florida State beat Louisville in the ACC and hold serve and be an undefeated champion. And then you'd have to have those other three conference have one-loss champs and Alabama be able to make their case. Yeah,
the one question I'm looking at right now, where does Ohio State go?
It's a good question. And last year, obviously, they backdoored their way in. I don't like the sort of chaos that would need to happen next weekend for that to happen. Obviously, Oregon would have to win. Texas would probably have to lose to Oklahoma State. Michigan would likely have to lose to Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. Then Alabama would have to beat Georgia, and Florida State would have to lose. Then the Buckeyes are sitting there saying, "Hey, come on, our only loss is on the road, and we were in it to the So that's the only thing. But all of that stuff would need to happen.
It's going to be chaos. It's going to be chaos. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's got to be a criteria for putting teams in. Head to head has to matter. Yeah, it has to matter. Strength of schedule has to matter. Being a conference champion has to matter, right? So if I just hope, and I can see both sides of it, I just hope prior winnings or championships don't dictate too much. All right, like with Georgia, I get it. You're back-to-back national championship champions. You're a phenomenal football team. Okay, if you lose against Alabama, all right, and you have an undefeated Michigan, an undefeated Florida State, right, and a one-loss conference champion out of the Pac-12, you're not getting in.
Well, let's talk about Georgia for a second, because this job Brent Key has done with Georgia Tech has truly been phenomenal. I think they're going to go to a bowl game, right? Yeah, they're 6-6. We're up on Georgia yesterday. And I mean, throughout the game, it still always felt like one of those games where, hey, yeah, Georgia Tech's winning, but Georgia's going to come back and demolish them and maybe even cover the spread. Well, that's not the case. Georgia did win 31-23, but they got all they could handle from Georgia Tech. Again, that is a rivalry game. That's an in-state rivalry game. Georgia, is sort of getting ready in many respects for Alabama in the SEC championship game. How much stock do you put into the way they played against Georgia Tech?
A good bit. What two things? Let's go ahead and say right now. No Brock Bowers, no Ladd McConkey, which is big for this Georgia football team. But worries me is the same thing. We go back, because when I look at Georgia, I look at who they're going to play if they get in. I would look like who they're going to play against the best. Okay, if you're Michigan, you got to feel good about a lot of things. You don't see a lot of teams run for 200+ yards against this Georgia front seven.
Yeah.
All right. Michigan's will lean on you, even they lost, I believe, their guard or their center broke his fibia, which sucks, but they still looked okay. They have plenty of pieces there. Georgia Tech does a lot of nice things. Haynes King's grown up a lot. Their offense is somewhat gimmicky, but it works. They beat 4 ranked opponents, so there's a team that you got to take serious. But still, man, until I see someone beat Georgia in a 4-quarter football game, no matter who it is, okay, I'm not rolling against the Dogs. They're just too good. And it's amazing. It's amazing how these names just keep popping up. But, guys, we don't even know. that look phenomenal. Out of receiver, the depth that they have. This is what carries you in big games. I thought Carson Beck looked okay. I thought he was protected well, but they keep winning football games. All right. And that's what you have to do. All right. If you're Georgia, you got a big one against Bama this week, which will get schemed up. Kirby and Nick in the SEC championship. Who'd have thought, David? Ha ha ha. It's hilarious. We're living in a simulation. But it's a big win for Georgia. I think Georgia Tech got up for this game. I think they were ready. They had a great scheme against these guys, and Georgia Tech's going. And look, Georgia Tech has athletes, man. If you're a football team in the state of Georgia, you got guys running around. I don't care if you have to have a 4.5 and be an engineer to get into Georgia Tech. They still have guys running around this field. Good for them. I don't think anybody lost in this game. I thought it was a good showing by both teams, but Georgia still rolling, man.
Speaking about teams in Georgia, man, Georgia Southern throttled by Appalachian State. Never a good look to lose to your rival that bad. I don't care if it's on the road, but either way, 50-something to 20-something. I already tried to forget about it, but either way, a couple other things here before you get to the chat. Ole Miss 17-7 in the Egg Bowl. Lane got Ole Miss to 10 wins. You know, they stayed focused down the stretch at the end of this year in a way that I didn't think they did last year. You know, congratulations to Lane Kiffin. That's a big ordeal going 10-2 at Ole Miss. Huge. Your losses on the road at Bama and at Georgia, those aren't bad losses.
Huge. What's been the knock on Lane since he's been at Ole Miss? He can't win 10 games.
Yeah. Missouri 48-14 over Arkansas. We had heard before the week that Arkansas is going to retain Sam Pittman. 10-2 Missouri. Eli Drinkowitz 10-2.
Let's
incredible,
go, baby.
Man.
The boys. Hey, big shout out to Schrader from Missouri. He's an absolute stud. Another
He's so
200
good.
yards. David, this was a 7-point spread. I didn't understand it.
Yeah, me neither.
People doubt Missouri. Missouri's a good football team, man. They're probably the third best football team in the SEC. Right? I mean, and Brady Cook, young. Luther Burden, young. Schrader, believe he's a junior and I have to go back and look. They play hard. They believe in Drink. I'm telling you, man, this is when you get to the point where you talk about coaches and believing in them and giving them time, giving them the process, right? No one, the hell, Drink was almost out the door. And now he's got a 10-win season. Congrats to them. Arkansas,
I'll be really interested to see who they play in the bowl game to see, because next year there's going to be expectations. You know, how do you win when you have expectations? So in that bowl game, that December is big, not only for the practices that you're going to get, right, for some of those young guys. Like it's 4 straight weeks of extra practices, like a mini spring ball. But then you get a bowl game, a chance to get to 11 at Missouri to springboard you into spring practice, which springboards you into fall camp. And then next year there's going to be expectations. So I'm already excited to see Missouri play football next year, to be honest.
Hell yeah, and it's huge for recruiting too, man. Years like this are huge for recruiting.
Penn State 10-2 again, another 10-win season, very similar to Ole Miss. You know, we talk about like Ole Miss, like that's an impressive year, and your losses are to Georgia and Alabama. Well, Penn State, I know Penn State's ready for the 12-0 year. They're ready to make the college football playoff with James Franklin, but 10-2 with losses to Michigan and OSU back-to-back seasons. You know, I understand the frustration, but man, things could be worse.
Yeah, you know, we kind of talked about Penn State, just the roller coaster ride that is a football season with these guys. And it's amazing to me the hell Ryan Day catches for losing to Michigan, but the hell James Franklin doesn't catch to losing to Michigan, Ohio State every year.
I hear a lot about it. Maybe fans are just sending me that on Twitter, and a couple have called in, I guess. But I think there's some frustration that it's time for him to go win, you know, more than 10 games. Again, can they do what they did last year? They could be looking down the barrel of a New Year's Six bowl or some big bowl game like that. Can they get that 11th like they did last year and see if somehow, with all the chaos that's going to happen next year, with no divisions in the Big Ten, new teams coming in from the West Coast, is that your year maybe to get into that conference championship game? And if you can, it's not going to be like what we're looking at Michigan and Iowa this next week. Now, of course, Iowa could win the football game. That's a great defense as well, but it's not going to be like if it were Penn State this next week, that's a much tighter spread going into the game. Obviously. And
Jonathan Smith from Oregon State taking the Michigan State job. Kind of give me your thoughts on that.
Is that official? The Michigan State job. Michigan State job. Look, man, I think it's a good hire. I don't think we see that move necessarily if there's no conference realignment, right? Like 100%. I think they're sort of getting left out. And I saw before, I thought you said Mississippi State, because I saw that Jeff Lebby is going to take the Mississippi State job. So this broke, I guess, last night. So Mississippi State is expected to hire Oklahoma OC Jeff Lebby as its next coach. So obviously we're going to be talking about all these new hires all week long, which talking about Oklahoma, that's another one I wanted to mention. 10-2. In Brent Venables' second year, another 10-2 season. You beat Texas. That's their lone loss in the Red River Shootout. And your two losses are at Kansas and at Oklahoma State. I know it's kind of disappointing that Oklahoma is not going to find themselves in the Big 12 championship game, their last year in the conference. But, 10-2, I think, is a good way to springboard you going into the SEC next season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this guy, what a roller coaster ride for this Oklahoma. If you're an Oklahoma fan, man, it's what worries me is this: like, you have the offense. If you lose Jeff Lebby, that's going to be tough. He's one of the best in the country. Dylan Gabriel, older guy. You do have a good backup. Sophomore kid's a 5-star is going to be pretty nice. But this defense, man, what you're walking into, okay, like you're walking into a buzzsaw every week. All right, you're walking into teams, and look, I think the SEC is somewhat down, this year, especially from the defensive side of the ball. But you're not going to be able to do this and have success in the SEC. You're not going to be able to give up 400-plus yards. You're seeing it with LSU, okay? And look, Jane Daniels is not going to be on your team. That's the only reason LSU's anywhere close to the record they have. They brought, in my opinion, the Heisman winner on their team. If you walk into a defense like this, you're going to get killed in the SEC. But I think Brent Venables, all right, if there's a guy ever to fix it, okay, it has to be him.
Yeah.
Right?
He headed up those Clemson defenses that were winning national championships.
That was the closest thing to SEC that you saw.
For sure.
David, you gave up 550 yards of offense versus TCU.
He knows it's not good enough. And we'll see if going into the SEC helps from every imaginable perspective, right? Getting new recruits. Year 3, we just talked about how Georgia's so impressive because when Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey aren't in, you see new bodies get filled up that are making plays, and you're like, oh wow, that's the depth that helps you win close football games at the end. Well, Brent Venables has to stack that depth for a couple years.
And what an easier way to do it with the transfer portal. Right.
Sure.
I'm telling you, this is why I'm waiting. I'm waiting on somebody to just spend all the money they have on all the best players in the transfer portal.
I thought Texas A&M did that.
I'm not in the transfer. Hell, they got more recruits than portal guys.
Yeah, no, right? I know, but yeah,
it's different to get a freshman and a guy who's already proven. I'm just
saying, that's true. Well, that's going to be the Colorado. That's going to be what Colorado.
Yeah, it's like the NBA. Just get all the best players, pay them.
Yeah. And how often does that win a championship? I see these super teams in the NBA still out here losing to the Nuggets and Golden State.
Yep.
But either way, did you see the Iowa-Nebraska game by chance? Did you see the under that I hit at 24.5?
I watched it a little bit, and at one point I looked at my phone, and the over-under was 36.5.
The live over-under?
The live over-under was 36.5.
No, the 24.5 lives, baby. 13-10 against all odds. Iowa wins at the last second on a field goal to go 10-2. Gut-wrenching loss for Nebraska, man, trying to get to bowl eligibility there.
Tough. But Nebraska, I feel like you're on the way. You're on the right track, right? And if you're a fan, I think you can feel that. And if you're not even a fan, just watching Nebraska, I think you can feel that. It takes time. Nebraska and Auburn fans are kind of in the same boat right now. It's just, you can see it, right? But you can't touch it, right? It's like Vince Vaughn on slow-mo, right? In the scuba diving accident. You want to grab it, you just can't touch it yet, but you can see it.
She looked good. Maybe I'll give her a call. Everybody wants to be part of a miracle, Blaine. Everyone does. Yeah. All right, Arizona 59-23 over Arizona State. They get to 9-3.
Yeah, look, this is one of my bets this week. One of the few bets I hit this week was minus 12.5. I think Arizona State's going to be good. They need time, right? They need time, but man, what this guy's doing at Arizona, I don't know how anybody doesn't come scoop him up.
It's awesome to see.
I'm hearing a lot of noise from A&M. I heard Mark Stoops this, Benjamin Button that. So look, Jeff Fish, he's a real one at Arizona, and somebody needs to get him and get him now.
Notre Dame 56-23 over Stanford. They get to 9-3. Not the season that we thought they were capable of after bringing Sam Hartman in with like all the pieces that they had too. But 9-3. Marcus Freeman's second year again. How can you build off of this, right? Like there's only so many. well, I was going to say there's only so many Sam Hartmans walking around who can transfer into your program at any given year. But with the brand Notre Dame has, combined with how the transfer portal works, maybe that will be their strategy moving forward. I don't know, to get transfer quarterbacks and playmakers rather than recruit them.
Doesn't it feel like a letdown season though if you're Notre Dame?
It does, not even just because of the preseason implications, but those first 4 weeks, right? Those first 4 weeks, I watched Notre Dame play, and I thought, man, I love this style of football. I love everything Notre Dame's doing. And a lot of people reached out to us, and we had people on the call in saying, no, they're just playing weak competition. And I said, that may be the reason that the score is so vast that they're winning these games by the margin of victory. But that's not dictating the type of team that I see, right? Like Audric Estime was going off. They had a great offensive line. The young wide receiver cores were still making plays. Sam Hartman wasn't, turning the football over necessarily like we had seen him do at times at Wake. And then even against a really good Buckeye team, you played him down the stretch. You had an interception from Kyle McCord in your hands to end that game. I feel like after that, everything switched, right? Then you go on the road, you barely beat that Duke team. They lost at, Louisville the next weekend, got blown out, something like that. It could be worse. Right. It could be worse. You're 9-3 in Marcus Freeman's second year. To me, it's all about how do you build off this and respond. Remember, Mike Norvell, we were talking about possibly being on the hot seat at the beginning of last year, and Florida State sits here 12-0 right now. So it's like, how can you build off of all this momentum you have?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be tough. I don't think there's a lot of guys. The reason you brought in Sam Hartman this year was to get you over the hump in these certain games, get you over the hump against Ohio State, against a Louisville, or against a USC or a Clemson, and that didn't happen. And look, you see what Brian Kelly did at Notre Dame. He won a lot of football games, and he won a lot of games he's not supposed to win. And Marcus Freeman right now hasn't won a game he's not supposed to win, and that's the worrisome part about it. So we'll see. It's a short leash at Notre Dame. They want to win. They want to win, and they want to win now. But I think Notre Dame is a pretty place to go to if you're a recruit, if you're a parent. It's a great school, so I think they'll do great in the portal. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, who's going to be your quarterback? Who's going to be your guy? Sam's gone, all right? And he was the Mr. Fixer, all right? He's like the guy from Holes. Don't worry, I'll fix that, okay? And he didn't do a lot of fixing this year. So I think a lot is going to be whispered about Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame.
I didn't watch a lot of the LSU Texas A&M game, but I know it was back and forth. LSU ends up winning 42-30. Jaden Daniels, I mean, did that game solidify the Heisman Trophy for him? Bo Nix showed out as well, and Bo Nix is going to have one extra game next week.
I think Jaden Daniels could have sat in this game and still should have won the Heisman.
Gotcha.
I really do. And look, man, it blows my mind. Like, Jaden Daniels has better numbers than the last 15 guys who won the Heisman. And we're sitting here, and look, Bo Nix is playing great. And I get it. All right. And I get it. If it was any other year, he should probably win the Heisman. But the Heisman is not a team award. It's not. It's not, guys. All right. It's an individual award. And what Jaden Daniels is doing at LSU is insane. He's been the best player in college football. I think we all know that. All right. And he deserves to win the Heisman. Hell, had over 100 yards. I'm pretty sure he had two or three touchdown passes. The kid played great. Just another check mark on the list. So if it's me, he could have sat in this game, and he still has a good enough numbers to win the Heisman.
Last two here before you hit the chat. North Carolina State, 39-20 over North Carolina. This is one of my dog picks in our Locks, Leans, and Dogs segment. I just thought, North Carolina State at home, in-state rivalry game. North Carolina's been shaky the last couple weeks. I liked NC State to win the game outright, and boy, did they.
I mean, at what point, if you're North Carolina, do you have to send Mac Brown down the river? And look, one of the best coaches ever to do it, man. Love Mac Brown, what he did everywhere at Texas, wherever he went, he won. But sooner or later, all right, you have the talent. Drake May's going to be a top 5 pick. All right, you have the guys at receiver, especially last year, Downs and the two other cats you had. You had Tez Walker this year. Sooner or later, man, you just got it's stale. It's stale. That's what it is. And you need Febreze brothers. All right, it's a brand new start. That's what North Carolina needs. You're about to lose Drake May. I'm sure they'll have another guy waiting in the wings. They always do. Sam Howell. I mean, you got Mitch Trubisky, who played great at North Carolina. When the NFL was a disaster, that's fine. But I think it's time for Mac Brown, and I think the fans know that. I had North Carolina go 7-5 this year.
Mm.
You know,
Well, you better have a better replacement because North Carolina is not one of those schools like a Notre Dame we were just talking about where you can snap your
you
fingers.
go get, Dave?
Who's
We
that?
already talked about him. You go get Jeff Fish from Arizona.
Is he leaving for the North Carolina job? I mean, if he did, is he leaving for North Carolina?
I mean, it depends on what. I mean, it depends on what options you have. Like, look, if A&M's hitting you up, yeah, go 100% go. But I mean, well, obviously it depends on the money. But I think North Carolina, yeah, I think North Carolina, and it's funny when Steve Smith said that comment about NC State about being a basketball school, they started whipping people's ass.
Yeah, they did.
It's amazing how that works, right? Kind of the same thing with Iowa State. Like sometimes you have to piss people off for them to play better.
Yeah. Speaking about that, Iowa State a big win too, 42-35. That gets them to 7-5. Also, Northwestern too. And I got to give a shout to Northwestern. They finished 7-5 on the year, right? Losing Pat Fitzgerald at the beginning of the year, I thought this was a 2 or 3 win team. They end up in 7-5. Like that's an incredible job. Then the last one on the slate to me, Clemson 16-7 over South Carolina. This is always a really fun in-state rivalry game. ACC, SEC. South Carolina finishes 7-5. You guys all know how I feel about Shane Beamer. He recruited me at Mississippi State. I think he's a great football coach. I think he's a great man. I want him to have a ton of success at South Carolina. I'm also a Dabo Swinney fan. South Carolina figured this problem out last year, really, put a beat down on Clemson last game of the season. This year, not the case. Shane Beamer 5-7 right now at South Carolina. They're not going to go to a bowl game. What needs to happen in this off season? You're going to lose Spencer Rattler most likely. What needs to happen for Shane Beamer to turn it around and really keep his job there for a long time?
Well, first of all, it's the most important thing. Where's the game won and lost at? That's up front, right? You have to build. You have to build depth up front on the offensive line. And South Carolina fans know that. But what worries you is, look, I don't think they really know what you're losing in Spencer Rattler. I think Spencer Rattler's a phenomenal football player. And the thing he had to go through the last 2 years of just getting absolutely killed because, one, you don't have anybody up front, and two, you can't stay healthy up front, right? So if you're Shane Beamer, one, I don't think you're going to be able to replace that, Spencer, in your next year. All right. But you have to hit the portal harder than anybody to go get offensive linemen. You need bodies, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you need. You need bodies. So if Legette's gone, you got a couple other good pieces there. But I want Shane to do well. I'm still kind of upset he didn't send us that helmet, and he told us he's going to send it to us. But I guess I can let that go. I think
Lost in transit.
I think he can win in South Carolina, but it starts up front, just like everywhere else. Everywhere else. That's where you have to win. You have to get healthy.
Well, talking about the transfer portal, it's going to be interesting to see how Dabo Swinney utilizes it this offseason. 8-4. It's just funny to me that the sky is falling. Worst season imaginable for Clemson is this 8-4 year where fans are calling in his radio station and saying it's not good enough. And look, that's how you set the standard that high. So it's a problem with your own creation. And if you're a head football coach at a Power 5 school, is that not the problem you want? You went and won multiple national championships. You've set the standard that high. So 8-4 is not going to be good enough to a Clemson fan base that has watched you do it at the highest level. Let's see how he utilizes the transfer portal this offseason.
Look, you got to adapt and overcome. That's what the best ones do, right? The best ones lead, they don't follow. That's what Nick does. That's what Kirby does. You have to adjust. And I think Dabo's getting to the point where he's being forced to adjust because of the projects getting put on the field. You're losing Shipley, who's been one of your best backs for a couple years right now. I thought Cade played good. Cade played within himself in this football game. But you go back to the Clemson we're used to seeing, one that's extremely good front seven, extremely good defensive line, and phenomenal skill players, which I think Cade's going to be good enough sooner or later to get them where they need to go. But Dabo, it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up because people aren't slowing down around you. You have plenty of schools around you that have big enough bankroll to go get kids. Okay. You're going to have to pay these kids, man. It's today's age. It's 2023. It's free agency. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Want to get us some donations?
Hit me with the chat real quick before we talk about some NFL games.
Let's go to David S. with the $5 donation. David, appreciate your brother. He says, I just want Florida football to be good again. I don't know what we did to deserve this pain and misery.
I'll tell you what you did. You won multiple national championships in football and in basketball in the 2000s. Like at some point that, you have to get pulled down. Florida was absolutely unbeatable in like every sport when I was in college. You had Tim Tebow. Remember they won the national championship in basketball and football that same year. They had Joakim Noah, like the whole squad. Horford was on that team. Look, Florida football is going to be fine. There's a couple programs I'm kind of worried about across the country if they can ever get back to prominence. The Florida Gators are not one of them.
That schedule next year is going to be rough as well.
Not going to be fun.
Not going to be fun. Let's go to Jeremy Brandt with a $2 donation. Jeremy, appreciate it, brother. He says, Nebraska welcomes Auburn to emotional hell. Jeremy, I feel welcomed.
Nebraska is one of those programs I'm talking about. Like it's been long enough now where it's like, okay, we've got to, you got to figure out a way to do something to, we're talking about Clemson being 8-4. And people are saying like 8-4 is never going to be good enough. Yeah, because you set the bar so high, right? Nebraska would love an 8-4 right now. Why? Because you can't get to 10-2, or you can't get to what Mike Norvell just did at Florida State, where you hit that 12-0 and you're involved in the playoff conversation until you can sort of get to 7-5 first, 8-4, 9-3, all those sorts of things. So Nebraska is one of those teams right now, and they would love that situation.
Let's go to Motorman 213 with the $5 donation. Appreciate it, brother. He says, good morning, gents. Jake and Blaine. Here's some hugs. I need them. Thank you. David, the kiddos are still undefeated. Who's got it better than us? Nobody.
My son has not seen Michigan lose to Ohio, which is just,
that's wild. Good for
I had really never seen us beat them. So, that's another. We're talking about programs getting turned around and things like that, Blaine. I mean, 8 straight years, man. Thanksgiving was ruined every year. It's mom's birthday. It's Thanksgiving. You just want to feel a little bit of joy. Yeah. And for a lot of those games, not even close, not even competitive, especially in the Urban Meyer years. And what made it so tough was that we got our guy, right? Like you went and got Jim Harbaugh. Even before him, Brady Hoke, who did at least get one win in that game. It's like, hey, you landed the guys you wanted, the old school Bo Schembechler proteges, and you still couldn't figure out a way to win. So these last 3 years, what they've been able to do in terms of turning around, getting really physical has been very impressive from the Michigan side of things.
Michigan gives me hope as an Auburn fan, right? Y'all give me hope of getting over the hump, believing in a coach, giving him time, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to Troy Jacobs with a $10 donation. Quack, quack. It's time for a rematch, fellas. Go Ducks.
I cannot wait.
Troy.
I can't
wait. This might be one of the best games all year.
Yeah.
Let's go to the house that Cody built with a $2 donation. Appreciate it, Cody. I love the house that you built. He says, Ryan Day was born on third base, and we all know it. I mean, can you blame the guy, though? Is it his fault Ohio State was successful before he got there?
No, not at all. And like I said, look, it's not his fault that he was coaching on an Urban Meyer staff that went 7-0. Like Urban Meyer is one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. Like, do I like the guy? No. Would I go hang out with him? Probably not. But like the guy can just flat out coach football. And Jim Harbaugh couldn't get his number, right? And so now Ryan Day has taken over again to the point where it's like that push and that pull, right? We just talked about Florida. Like you can't be on top of that. Like that's why I'm really interested to see what happens to this Alabama program when Nick Saban leaves, right? Like there's only so long you can continue a dynasty and a run like that, especially when other programs are putting everything they have into winning and to trying to solve the Rubik's Cube, right? So 3 straight wins. I will say this one. He's 50-1 against non-Michigan and non-college football playoff teams and has the highest winning percentage. I'm talking about Ryan Day here. Yeah. This one, though, won't be lived down, Blaine, for a long time because not only is this 3 straight, that's Sharon Moore who walked over from the sideline and shook your hands after. Like the Buckeyes aren't going to let him live that one down for a long time. And we're talking about a team that could have played in the national championship last year, and who knows, they could sneak their way into this one too. Yeah. They could still be national champions at the end of the year, and he's still not going to live that down. That speaks to how much this rivalry matters.
100%. I agree with you 100%. Let's go to Christopher Ard with a $5 donation. Christopher, appreciate it, brother. He says, early thoughts on the Big 12 title game. I think OU versus Texas would have been a much better game, and Texas beats OSU easy. I am biased. So, I mean, I think this is going to be a game. I don't think this is going to be a killing. You are worried about Oklahoma State the last couple of weeks putting themselves down and having to come back and come back. I don't think they're going to be able to do that against this Texas team. I think they need to come out and start hot early. I think they can get that done. But I think this is going to be a great game. David, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I hope we see a great game too. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier in the show. Can they get that run game with Ollie Gordon going against this Texas front seven that's just been proven to be so formidable? And then on the other side of that too, like, can you get after Quinn Ewers? Like, obviously he's shown that he'll get banged up, in the middle of games. And if you can rattle a guy in the middle of a conference championship game and make it anyone's game late, that would be a win for Oklahoma State, to try and take it late in the fourth.
Yeah, let's go to Jack Hogan with the $5 donation. Appreciate it, Jack. So I stayed in the student section for almost 30 minutes post-game. Proud of the fight we put up. War Damn Eagle for life. On to basketball and the Mayo Bowl. Look, Jack, I mean, it sucks. It's tough. Gut-wrenching. Heart stomped on loss for us. But, I mean, we're Auburn fans and we don't put it all in one game. We believe in who we are. We believe in the message Hugh says. We believe in this team, and we believe in Auburn. So we'll be back just as strong as ever. I want to give kudos to the fans, man. That environment was crazy.
Did you see what Dan Bongino tweeted either last night or this morning?
Dan's an Auburn guy, isn't he?
I don't know, but he was at the game last night and he sent out a tweet that said something about, people in the South are just built different. I was at the Auburn game. I was, in Jordan-Hare, all this and that. And he said to watch the way that these people came out and this fan base came out for a team that has no championship aspirations at all, to pack this stadium and to scream for like 3 straight hours was just the most incredible thing he had seen.
Yeah. Auburn fans love Auburn. Right, the certain sport. Auburn fan just loves Auburn. Kudos. I was on the sidelines too. It was a wild game for sure. Let's go to Garth Cassidy with a $5 donation. Appreciate it, Garth. So screw the Doak Walker Award. Did you guys see Audrey Estime yesterday? Tell me he does not belong on the top 10 list. David, I didn't catch much of the Notre Dame Stanford game.
I didn't either.
Any of it, but I mean, Estime to me has only been a letdown this year in big games. He hadn't really done a lot to impress me.
He ran the ball really impressly to me. Again, to that first half of that season, but I think where it turned for you, it really turned for you in that Louisville game. When Louisville's defense, which is headed up by my old coach Ron English, that's when I started to see, you were just not impressed with Estime and that offensive line as much anymore.
Well, you're a 300-pound back. I just didn't see a lot of yak. That's the only thing I was saying. It's this, it's that. He's huge, but if you're going to do that, I need yak yardage.
Sure.
Let's go to Lee Thompson with a $20 donation. Lee, appreciate it, brother. Says, have a drink on me, boys. Pair it with a good cigar. Yeah, I needed a
last night, man. That's for sure.
I didn't go out and do anything last night. I couldn't be around people. Let's go to Will Hewitt with a $5 donation. Will, appreciate it, brother. I got you again, Blaine. It's all love. They would have got that stop if you gave them the 2021 cone speech before the game. Go Dogs. Well, look, man, I tried. To let him give me a speech before the game. Would have hyped the boys up. Well, I think whoever did give the pregame speech, it worked.
Yeah.
It worked. They came out ready to play. And you got to think the way Auburn was being successful, was running the football. And that's
244 yards, man. If I told you that pregame, you would have been freaking out.
I would have bet against you all my money. Let's go to Garth Cassidy, $5 donation. Blaine, who did Brian Kelly at Notre Dame beat that they were not supposed to? I'd have to go back and look, but I know there's a couple teams in there other than Bama that they beat that they were not supposed to win. Well,
he always ran into these trains at the end of the season, right?
Yeah,
that championship game against Alabama was one too. But he seemed to be able to have those. He seemed to be able to get Notre Dame into the BCS and playoff conversations, more years than he wasn't when he was at Notre Dame, which I always thought was, that's the Notre Dame standard.
Yeah. 100%.
He's an all-time winningest coach there for a reason too.
Yeah, 100%. That's all the donos for today. Tony, you want to get some NFL games?
Let's talk about the NFL quickly here. We got the Saints at the Falcons in a divisional matchup. Saints 5-5, Falcons 4-6.
Yeah, I believe Desmond Ridder will be starting for the Falcons. Michael Thomas is out for the Saints. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. I don't think any of these offenses are phenomenal. You are liking to see with the Falcons, Bijan finally coming along and getting carries, getting yards. Him and Tyler Algier usually had most of the carries, most of the bulk of the carries. He's starting to see it the other way. So, two teams I'm not worried about. I don't think they're going to be playoff teams. I just don't think Derek Carr is good enough, and I do not think Desmond Ridder is good
Somebody's got to win this division, though, right? I don't think
know.
I've picked the Saints or the Falcons correctly when I've picked for them or against them throughout this season. So one's got to give today, right?
One's got to give. Really if I had to pick, I'd go Saints.
Yeah, I think the Saints are better, but the Falcons are at home, so give me Atlanta because I have no idea. Steelers at Bengals. This is another divisional matchup here. Steelers 6-4. They fired Matt Canada. Sounds like there's some drama on the sidelines with Deontay Johnson and Coach Mike Tomlin. I don't know if you read about any of that situation. Bengals 5-5. So what's the deal at quarterback moving forward for the Bengals?
I think it's Jake Browning, isn't it?
Yeah, that's who they've gone to now, right?
Yeah, I think it's Jake Browning for the Bengals. I mean, look, without Joe, it's just you don't got it. Steelers are an interesting situation. The personalities you have on that sideline of receiver. I mean, Pickens is a personality. Deontay Thompson is a personality. And a lot of people aren't happy with Kenny Pickett and what he's done there so far. And somehow they're still 6-4. I think that's kudos to Mike Tomlin, just the culture he has, the winning culture and the defense that they can put together. Their front seven, their secondary is okay. I like the Steelers in this game. I feel like the difference is the Steelers can get to Jake Browning. All right, they can get to him often with the Watt guys and that other rookie that have who's an absolute stud. I just don't think the Bengals are going to have it without Joey B, the franchise kid, the good cigar smoking king. And you still have Jamar Chase, you still have good pieces, but what stirs the drink? That's Joey B. So give me the Steelers. I think the Steelers bounce back after firing Matt Canada. They could get worse on offense, that's for sure.
And they're 6-4.
They're 6-4.
Yeah, give me the Steelers as well. Panthers 1-9 going to the Titans 3-7. Man, not great for Mike Vrabel right now in Tennessee, which I hate to see.
Well, I haven't heard a lot about Will Levis lately.
Yeah, everyone knew that was what's going to happen, right?
Did they though, Dave?
You had to. He threw 4 touchdowns. You had to make the move to him, right? Like you had to just for the soul of the team.
But that's fine. But he got gassed up since he was like the best thing since water.
Yeah,
right. And look, it's like baseball, right? You go back and you see these this stats is like, yeah, he threw 111 miles per hour across the infield, or this rookie went 3 for 3 with 2 home runs, and then you look 3 months later, he's in the minors. That's how it works. Like it's what for you done for me lately, all right? And Will's he's an okay player in my opinion. He's an okay. I think he'll get better. I don't think he's going to take the Titans to the Super Bowl one day. I don't think they're good enough. I don't think Vrabel's going to last throughout the year. In my opinion, I mean, have you seen Derrick Henry's career is getting wasted?
Yeah,
wasted.
Yeah, I mean, look, we talked about this. I don't think the Super Bowl winning team for the last 10 years has even had a Pro Bowl running back. Like having that guy who's the best, and Derrick Henry, I think, is one of the best running backs I've ever seen play the position in my life. That's not necessarily what wins you Super Bowls. Even a couple of years ago, when 1, he was in his prime, and 2, that defense was just incredible. I mean, Mike Vrabel had built this defensive unit that looked a lot like a Steelers team to me, right? Or like a Ravens team to me. Even then it was like, what would they get, the playoffs, AFC championship game maybe? So even then it wasn't, you weren't winning Super Bowls. I get it. If you had Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, things would be a lot different, but then you wouldn't even have a Derrick Henry running the football like that and that sort of offense.
Yeah.
So, but who are you taking today?
Let me see. It's
Panthers.
God. Games.
If you don't pick the home team,
I mean, I got to go with the Titans, right?
Pick Tennessee.
I got to go with the Titans. It's 2 bad football teams playing each other.
Buccaneers at the Colts. Colts 5-5, even after losing Anthony Richardson at the beginning of the year. Baby. Buccaneers 4-6. Again, someone's got to win that division. I don't know, but you like the Buccaneers to get a win on the road, or the Colts to hold home field advantage?
Yeah, I think this is so tough. I would lean the Bucs, but I think they're banged up in the secondary. I think Baker's having a phenomenal year. If you look at his stats, he's having one of his best years that he's had in the NFL in his career. And I like the pieces the Bucs have. But let me Gardner Minshew, Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman Jr., Alex Pierce. I like these kids. I kind of like the way they're built. They always just seem to find a way, right? They know how to win games, close games, and this game's at home. I like the Colts. Close, probably a field goal game.
Patriots 2-8. Just if you ever thought things could not fall off a cliff with Bill Belichick, 2-8 going to the Giants 3-8.
This game, I mean, look, I got to pick the Giants.
Over unders 33.5.
Oh God, that's terrible. Who would have thought we'd be talking like now? You know what's the word on Belichick? You know, do you keep him around? Is it a send it down the river type of thing like we talked with Mac Brown in North Carolina?
There has to be a certain level of respect and diligence done with 6 Super Bowls.
For sure.
But at the same time, I see this 2-8 stems from a lot of stubbornness, to be honest, with some of the decisions that get made when it comes to drafting and when it comes to coordinators. I mean, to have Matt Patricia a year ago, who was your DC before all of a sudden be your offensive coordinator, like that was when I really started to scratch my head. But you know, you always shrug it off and say, well, this is the greatest NFL coach of all time, right? 6 Super Bowls. Now here they sit 2-8. It's not a pretty situation. And look, New England's still favored -4 on the road at the Giants, but this is one of those games that I think Dayball could figure out a way to win.
Absolutely. I think these are one of those games where, you know, whoever makes the least mistakes is going to win. I mean, the Giants defense have been playing extremely well. They're a pretty damn good unit on that side of the ball. It's just they're on the field all the time, and you can only stop somebody for so long if you're on the field all the time. DeVito, the Italian kid, had a great game against Commanders last week, especially what they did with Saquon out of the backfield, which I think they need to start doing more. But I think right now, if you're the Patriots, I just don't think Mac Jones is your guy. And I think you know that, and I think you need to pull the trigger on it. And look, feelings, you got to get emotion out of this stuff, right?
I wonder if it's I wonder if Jalen Hurts were in New England right now, if things would be as bad.
They wouldn't be 2-8.
You say that, but it's like, again, if we're talking about Bill Belichick's stubbornness, would they even have the sort of system that would use Jalen Hurts' strengths? I mean, is Mac Jones, like there's some guys you can put anywhere and at some point they're going to have success. Michael Jordan could have just gotten drafted anywhere. It really is true. Mac Jones may be the type of guy could have gotten drafted anywhere and he's still going to underperform. I don't know. I saw what Mac Jones was capable of at the college level, and I just think that he's one of those guys, a lot like Alex Smith. Remember, Alex Smith came in and was bouncing around, and it was considered a bust. All of a sudden, he gets with Jim Harbaugh at the San Francisco 49ers, and we're like, oh, wow, that's the type of quarterback we always thought Alex Smith could be in the NFL. Is this a situation where maybe Mac Jones out of New England and with a different offensive-minded head coach would be playing better football?
Well, right now, how many teams do you think Mac Jones would start for?
I'd like to actually run this experiment and go through each one and see, but maybe 10?
10. God, what 10? What 10?
He'd be starting for the Raiders right now.
Favre's been playing well, bud.
Huh? He'd be starting for the team they're playing right now, the Giants.
Yeah, but I'm talking with Daniel Jones. Does he start over Daniel Jones?
Probably not after they paid him, but Daniel Jones is hurt right now.
Yeah, okay.
He'd be starting at the Colts right now with Anthony Richardson hurt.
And Gardner Minshew wins football games. I don't think
He'd be in a battle with Baker in Tampa.
He ain't starting over Baker.
You love Baker.
Well, look at his numbers.
Could he start for the Titans?
Yes, he can. Yes, he can, Dave.
Absolutely. All right. Well, all right. Let's rapid fire these real quick. Jaguars bounce back win after that loss to the 49ers. They're 7-3. They're going to play the Texans 6-4. CJ Stroud, man, coming in just playing hot. You going to take the Jaguars to win at the Texans?
Yeah, I would take the Jaguars money line, but if I could preferably make a bet, obviously you would take the over 47.5. I think both these offenses are clicking. I think CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, and this team, what DeMeco Ryans is doing with this guys is phenomenal. It's a feel-good story. But I feel like the Jaguars defense is starting to come along. Their defensive line is starting to come along. Trevor's starting to get healthy. You just got Zay Jones back, another piece for that receiving core. Calvin Ridley looked phenomenal last week, and that has a lot to do with Zay Jones being back and not being able to double Calvin as much as usual. So give me the Jaguars close, Close.
I
But
like
I'm
this
going with the
Texans
Jags.
team, man. I think I'm
They're
going to
good.
ride
They're
with this
fun to
Texans
watch, man.
team. All right, Browns 7-3. They got a backup quarterback in as well. At the Broncos 5-5. Broncos really been figuring it out lately.
Yeah, I like the Broncos in this game.
I
Look,
do
the
too.
Browns are a hell of a story too now. I
They
mean,
are.
7-3 with PJ Walker and DTR. They're just winning football games. Good for Skavancy and that guys over there, that coaching staff. Myles Garrett's an absolute monster. This defense is really good, but the Broncos defense is really good, and what they're good at is turning people over, and they do that a lot at home. I think the Broncos win this game. Russell, let's ride with the Broncos nation. Close, over under 37.5. This feels like a field goal game as well.
I agree. Rams 4-6 at the Cardinals 2-9. Really, no postseason aspirations at this point for these teams. Stafford is Stafford going to play or is he out? What's the word on that?
I'm not positive on this. I know Cooper Kupp's going to be out. I don't think Cooper's going to play. If it's me, I'll probably sit Cooper for the rest of the season, which a lot of fantasy owners are not going to be happy about that. But it's the way the world works. Man, look, I like the Cardinals in this game, even if Matty Staff plays. I think Kyler looks good. I think Kyler looks good on his couple games he's been back. It takes a feel to get back into it, man. It's like either driving on a simulator and driving in real life. Like you just need to feel those cars around you actually moving. And Kyler's starting to feel that. And I think the Cardinals are starting to look up a little bit. And I think they're going to have an opportunity to get a good pick in the draft too, which I can kind of get a feeling of who they're going to take. But I like the Cardinals in this game. I know the Rams are favored by 3, so I think Cardinals money line is a good bet.
All right, I'm going to take the Rams. Chiefs 7-3 at the Raiders 5-6. Did the Chiefs bounce back this week after that loss to the Eagles?
This Chiefs team is just so weird. They're not a Chiefs team like and I don't think we give enough credit to the last year's team when they won it with the Super Bowl without Tyreek Hill. Like, guys, that's insane. Like insane of the names that they have right now, receiver, and that's what's holding them back right now. Justin Watson, you can't catch. Valdez Scantling, without dropping the end zone. Kadarius Toney looks good, but you just don't have the guy. And I don't know if Travis Kelce is enough. I mean, Travis is getting a little bit older. Everyone's talking about Taylor Swift this, Taylor Swift that. 10.5 to me right now is a lot to go against this Raiders team with the Max Crosby, who I swear makes every tackle. Yeah. Every tackle. A Favre at quarterback. O'Connell, who's looking good. You still have Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams at receiver. You have pieces. 10.5 is too many points. I don't think the Chiefs' offense is good enough. But I think the Chiefs win, but I think it's a lot closer than that.
I'm going to take the Chiefs as well, but I agree with everything you said. Bills at the Eagles. Is this one of those ones that the Bills like sneak around and figure out a way to win when we've kind of written them off? They're 6-5. Eagles look just unbeatable. They've won all these different type of ways, won ugly football games. Is this one of those ones where it's like the Bills sneak up? Because I do have a hard time believing the Eagles are going to go 16-1 this season, like just the way the NFL works. And there's only a handful of teams that I really think can beat them. I mean, at this point, their only losses to the Jets, right? Like, who would have seen that coming? I mean, the Eagles, they've really been playing recently like they're the best team in football. I just wonder if this is one of those NFL scripted specials where you really get a slider. Like you swing out of your shoes at the off-speed pitch.
Yeah, it feels like this is a sneaky trap game. But God, man, they're just good.
They're really good.
The only thing that worries me is Jalen Hurts' health, right? It's his knee, the way they play on offense. They want to get him out. They want to move him around. Some QB powers, QB draws. And this Bills team is beat up, man. They're beat up on defense. Their best players are hurt on defense, and there's 3 or 4 of them. So they can't really stop anybody. I mean, Josh Allen, still Josh Allen. You look at his numbers, he's phenomenal. Most touchdowns, but most interceptions. He's got to get that out of his system if he wants to go somewhere and actually win something important. Give me the Eagles. I like the Eagles controlling the line of scrimmage in this game.
All right, last one, the night game tonight. The Ravens at the Chargers. The Ravens 8-3. I think they've been one of the top 3 most impressive teams in the NFL to me, the way that they've been playing football. Lamar Jackson's looking good, staying healthy so far throughout the season. The Chargers 4-6. I don't think I need to go on a diatribe every single week about how I feel about, Brandon Staley as the head coach of this team and the way they underperform with the amount of talent that they have, not just on one side of the ball, on both sides of the football. They are going to be at home today, though, playing against the Ravens. That line is -3 Baltimore, over under 48.5.
God, this is going to be an interesting game, to be honest. Losing Mark Andrews kills the Ravens. He was that big of a piece. If anyone, his number one guy. But you did add pieces, what we talked about with the Ravens, Zay Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., and Lamar Jackson still being Lamar, and he's healthy, which is huge. The Ravens want to run the ball and play defense. That's what the Ravens want to do. The Chargers want to turn this into a shootout, not stop the run, and just score and score and score and try to win the game with the last-second field goal. I think the Ravens' defense is too good. I think they control the line of scrimmage up front in most of their games. I think this is going to be a dominating win for the Ravens. I think up front, the Chargers aren't good enough for the O-line. They will get to Justin Herbert, and I know some injuries. Bosa's hurt. You still have Khalil Mack. But without Bosa, the one-man army and Khalil is just not going to be enough to get Lamar Jackson. Not only get to him, but get him on the ground. I like the Ravens, and I like the Ravens big in this football.
I like the Ravens as well, but it would be a big moment for Brandon Staley to say, hey, look, I can beat good football teams. And we haven't seen them do that. So I'm going to take the Ravens as well. Any parting shots in the chat before we head out?
I believe we got all the donations, guys. I really appreciate y'all coming out today. I know it's a lot, but, for all my Auburn fans up there, keep your head up. There's always another game to play. You just can't let this get you too down. Be sad while you be sad, but just know the bounce back will be even better. You got to believe in your head coach. But congrats to Michigan. Yep. Another big one for the boys.
Look, it was a tumultuous, 5 weeks right now, Blaine? I mean, with all – and really even longer than that, ever since the off season, just the stuff coming out with Jim Harbaugh and the program. It just kind of caught a lot of people off guard and was very frustrating from a lot of different perspectives. But back-to-back undefeated seasons now in the regular season, and as disappointing as it is to go to the college football playoff and get blown out by Georgia or to lose to a TCU team that you're supposed to beat, I have to say, winning that game yesterday, that gets you through an entire year. I don't have to tell you guys about it. Auburn was on the cusp of winning the Iron Bowl, which would have just, everything changes at that point, right? It's a slate wiped clean. So 3 straight wins. Congratulations to Jim Harbaugh and more importantly, the players on that team. That's one of the closest units. They may not be as talented as Georgia or have all the depth, but they're as close as it gets. And Sharon Moore to pitch a perfect game like that down the stretch, to stay unpredictable against a really good Buckeyes team. And that defense, the way they shut down Michigan's run for much of the game was very impressive.
Yeah, let me throw this at you real quick. It's refreshing as a college football fan just to see the togetherness of Michigan, especially when Corum threw up to 65 after he scored that touchdown. That was just dope. Is Jim Harbaugh going to be the Michigan coach next year? And if not, is the OC just going to slide in that spot?
That's a really good question. Steve Dace and I were talking about that. If Michigan had lost this game, obviously they wouldn't play the next week in the conference championship game. And we were starting to say, has Jim Harbaugh coached his last game at Michigan? Because now there's all sorts of, rumors that, the NCAA is just going to suspend. Well, even before we get to the NFL talk, now there's all sorts of rumors that he's going to be suspended for much of the 2024 season. I almost sent out a tweet yesterday that said, breaking news, the NCAA investigates Michigan because Jim Harbaugh made the team practice before yesterday. It seems like that's at the point but like I said, all of that, we have all off season to talk about that. I don't know if Sharon Moore is ready to be the head coach at Michigan, but I'll tell you what, he sure at least put his name, his hat in the ring after his performance yesterday and down the stretch of these past 3 games to be able to perform the way that he did. And not only that, remember, he was the co-offensive coordinator last year. Matt Weiss, with whatever situation he got in with the computer crimes and the whatever weird stuff he was into, Sharon Moore has stepped up to every single challenge. So congratulations to them, and we'll get into all the investigation, all that kind of stuff. But right now, it was just about football. It was about players going out there, brothers running down that tunnel, locking the gate, and saying, "Hey, let's just go play football." And that's what they did. And now they're on the cusp of winning 3 straight Big Ten championships. And like you said, for Auburn fans or Nebraska fans or South Carolina fans, all these programs trying to get back up in there. Florida State has turned the corner as well. Yeah. If you're patient with the right head coach and give them the resources, good things can happen if you show up and support your team.
It's just that's so true. And one thing that was great for me to see before we wrap things up is just in all rivalries, you could see the hate that was in them. Right. It felt like a rivalry games, even when the game really, didn't have a national thing to make happen. Florida and Florida State were getting after it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Right. Louisville and Kentucky we're getting after it. I love it. Michigan, Ohio State, we're getting after it. I loved it. Auburn, Alabama, we're getting after it. I love it. All these, it felt rivalry week did not disappoint.
No, and even yesterday down the stretch, you know what it felt like to me at the end of that game? Michigan needed a 7-minute drive to close it out. And what did they do? They got a 6-minute drive.
Yep.
Well, that's not enough. That gives Ryan Day a great offensive mind with Marvin Harrison Jr., one of the best wide receivers we've ever seen, a full minute to go down and score. I thought, man, they're going to win this game by 1. And afterwards, I can't even be upset or mad about it because the last 3 hours of my life has been so fulfilling just watching this game. That's why I just said hats off to both teams because it lived up to the hype in every respect.
Absolutely. Hey, big news. Something maybe big coming out of the Daily Wire tomorrow for your boys.
Yeah. Everybody, look, Booster Club, thank you for y'all's support all year. And obviously football season is really huge for us. You know, this is going to be a big week for us. We can't be any more specific than that right now, but we got something very exciting that we want to introduce y'all to. And also y'all say a prayer for Jake and Reed and their family. They're dealing with some family situation right now as Jake heads back home. So we're all praying for them.
All right. David, great show, man. We'll see you bright and early in the morning. Booster Club, thank y'all. And like the chances of Ohio State making the playoff, we're going, gone.